Hello and welcome back to Gapeys Garden. It's time for the first fig update of the season. All right, we're going to start with the 7 new varieties that I picked up just this year. So the first one here we have is called Stella, and I guess this is a compact variety, so it's probably perfect for a container. I picked this one up from a local plant swap, and it's a pretty young tree. I think it was probably started maybe late last year, but it's just got 2 stems coming out of one main stem, and I'm not seeing any brabas or main crop formed on these, so we'll probably have to wait till next year to get any fruit off that one. And then the next 6 are all from K2 in Seattle, a very generous fig grower. And this first one here is the Brandon Street Unknown, and we have 2 main stems on this one, and each stem has a few branches on it. So this lower one has 2 branches. There's no figs that I could see forming on this lower branch, but it has some new growth that's coming out here. And then this taller stem here has a few branches coming off here. There's 1, 2, 3, looks like 4 branches. And we do have 1 little fig growing on that one there. So that is kind of right at the top of the old wood, so that's probably considered a braba fig. So that one is looking really nice. And then this smaller one, and I think all of these are, this is their second year, so I think they were all started last spring in 2020. So this one here is the Roberts Golden Rainbow, and we've got 1 stem here, and then it branches off here, and I don't see any figs there, and then it keeps going up, and we've got a couple more branches here. Again, no figs. So I'm not seeing any figs on this guy, but we have a lot of new growth here, so we may see some main crop come out of there a little bit later. And then we've also got another one here called the JFE Black Madeira, and this is just 1 stem here, and we've got 1 little tiny branch that's coming out the back there, and I'm not seeing any figs on here at all. We have a little nub of something growing here that might be some more leaves, but we got some new baby leaf growth coming out the top there. And then this one here is the White Madeira, and this leaf is looking, actually take that one off, that was a bad looking leaf, but everything else is looking really good. These have kind of an unusual shape leaf for a fig, at least these lower branch ones, and these ones here are a little bit more typical of your fig, but it's much more rounded shaped than most fig varieties. But this one it was growing really pretty strange, and I'm not sure if that's why he got rid of it, but you can see this branch is really horizontal and it just comes way out to the side. And there is 1 fig here. That's a braba fig, it looks like, but it's just a really strange looking fig. So this other smaller branch over here, I actually cut it off right there because it was going straight out to the side, and that's not a very good form. So I cut that off, and I'll show you what I did with it. So I took that branch, and it's here in the greenhouse, and I rooted it. So the rooting took, and it has been growing really well. It was a nice fat cutting, and it was actually a little bit green still when I rooted it, but it still put out some nice roots and green growth. And it looks like more figs are starting to form maybe here, but I actually took off several figs from this cutting that were starting to form on the new growth, which is called a main crop fig. So we don't want this to produce fruit this early because we want it to focus on root development, not fruit development. So any figs that come off of here, I'm just going to remove them before they get too big. But it's looking really good. I started it in a clear solo cup. This one isn't clear, but actually you can see it in this one here. So this is another one that I started. But I like starting them in these clear plastic cups so that I can see the root development and know when it needs to be up potted. So I up potted it from one of these containers to this bigger tree pot about 3 weeks ago, I think. So it's been in here for a few weeks and it's doing really good. There is some brown spots on some of the lower leaves. I'm not sure if that's sunburn or some kind of a rust fungus or something, but the new growth is looking pretty decent, so I think it's going to be okay. But it had some really nice roots when I repotted it. Then this other fig tree I have rooting is the Ronde Bordeaux. So I just took some cuttings off of the Ronde Bordeaux that I had, and this is the only one that rooted. I took a few cuttings, but this is the only one that made it, and it's looking like it's got some pretty nice looking roots there, so I might be potting that up here pretty soon into one of these tree pots like I have this one in. Now these last two figs from K2 have not put out any growth at all, so I'm thinking they're probably not going to make it because they should have put out some growth by now. But the first one is the Granthams Royal, and the first thing I did when I noticed there wasn't any growth on there is I kind of pulled on the stem, and this one just slid right out. So you could see there is no roots on here, so there should have been some roots by now, so this one is most likely dead. And then this other one is called Nordland, and I did the same thing. I kind of tugged on it, but it's in there pretty securely, so I think there are roots there, but they may have just rotted or dried up or something. So I'm going to do a scratch test on this one. So what you do is just scratch the bark and see if there's any green left on these stems. Okay, we're going to start towards the top of the fig just to see if there's any green growth by taking a knife and just kind of scratching the surface. So it's looking pretty dry there, so we should see green if it was still alive. So I'm going to keep going further down the cutting until I see if I can find some green. So this fig cutting is looking pretty dead. So I checked all the way down pretty close to the bottom on that one. So I'm gonna check the other stem here. Yeah, we're not seeing any green growth at all. So this is pretty brown and dry. So this fig cutting is pretty dead. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this up just to see what the bottom looks like. So yeah, there are some roots here, but they're just looking pretty bad. So they might have rotted, or this might be the fig cutting that we had to cut the big taproot on because it was in the soil pretty deep and we had a hard time getting it out. So we had to cut one of the main roots, and that may have been a little bit too much for it. So this one is not gonna make it. Let's take a look now at my two youngest fig trees from last season. So this one is the Nero 600M, and this is one that I won on our figs in a giveaway. So it is looking really great. It's got a lot of new growth, lots of side growth here that I might end up trimming off. We don't want too many branches. And then it does have two Braba figs on it, so I'm hoping to get to try these this year. So they should be ripening up probably in a couple months. And then the other young one I have here is the Burgessot Grease. So this one here is one that I rooted myself, and I took a cutting off of another fig tree to make this one. So let me show you what the parent of that one looks like. So here is the parent fig. I have it in a self-watering container in the greenhouse. It was raining quite a bit and I didn't want it sitting out in the rain, so I moved it to the greenhouse to protect it from the rain. But we have a little bit of new growth. It seems to be growing really slow. It didn't really grow much last year either. So I think the cutting that I took off of it is actually growing a lot more than the parent. It does have some new growth. It's just growing pretty slowly, and I don't see really any figs starting to form on the parent. And then also in another self-watering container, I've got the Figo Preto. And this one takes a much longer growing season, so I'm hoping to get some figs off of it this year. Last year, it did form some figs, but we didn't have quite a long enough season for them to mature. So I'm hoping to get some this season. And then this nice looking fig here is the Tacoma Violet. And this is one that has the most Braba figs of all the figs that I have this year. So we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think we've got 7 Braba figs on this guy. So it's looking really, really nice, and it's in a pretty large container here. So we've got lots of new growth coming out the top as well. So it's looking like a really good one, and this is a candidate for going in the ground. I have a spot for one more tree to put in ground, and I'm still trying to decide which one, and this is a possibility. And then next we've got the Ronde de Bordeaux. So this one was my most productive fig last year. I'm not even sure, I might have taken a dozen or so figs off of this tree. Now I'm not seeing any figs forming on it yet this season, so I'm hoping it will start forming some figs here pretty soon. But we've got lots of new growth, and some of this side growth that's really small, I'm just taking that off so it doesn't waste energy on putting out growth from the bottom there, because we want more top growth. But it's looking pretty good. I may take off some more of these side branches here. And then next we have, this was supposed to be a Kathleen's Black, but if you saw my video on this variety last year, it turns out that's not what it is, so we're still kind of undecided. It might be a Latarula, possibly a honey fig, but it's unknown at this point. But I still have it. I haven't changed the label on it. It still says Kathleen's Black, even though that's not what it is. But I'm not seeing any figs on it yet for this season, but there is quite a bit of new growth, and I might be trimming some of these off as well. Like this, there's 3 branches coming off of this stem here, so I'll probably just take one of those off so it's not wasting energy on too much growth there. And then the next one over here, this one is the Marseille Black, and this is also another one that I started from a cutting last year, and it's doing pretty good. It has 2 figs on it so far that are looking really nice, and some nice green growth there coming out the top. So these are going to be, actually I thought they were Braba figs, but the stem is looking kind of green, so it might be considered main crop. But some of the figs this year never really went fully dormant, so I'm not really sure if that's main crop or if it's Braba. And then the last of the potted fig trees, we've got the Olympian. So we've got 3 kind of main branches coming off on this one, and lots of new growth. I think this branch here has probably too many stems coming out, so I might be trimming some of those back, like this one here. Probably don't need that. And lots of top growth there, but the second stem over here kind of branches into 2. So we've got 1 little fig here on this branch, so you can see it there. It's kind of a longer shaped fig there. So hopefully we'll get to taste this one this year. It didn't form any figs last year. Now let's take a look at what in-ground figs I have. So this is the Desert King, and I just planted this one here last month, and it's doing really, really well. It seems to really like this spot. But we have lots of big leaves, nice looking leaves. And let's see, we do have some Brabas here. So we've got, looks like we've got 3 there, and they are pretty good size. So hopefully we get a few Braba figs off of this guy. We've got kind of 2 main branches here, and both of those are doing really well. This one didn't produce last year. This is one I started from cutting last year, and I have had this variety before from someone else's tree, so I do know what it tastes like, and it's a really, really great fig, and it grows really, really well in the Pacific Northwest. So if you're in this area, I highly, highly recommend this variety to grow in ground. And then lastly, we have the Latarula. So this is one I planted in ground last year, and as you can see, there is no growth on that. So I think it may have died somehow. I know this variety is pretty hardy, so I'm not sure why it didn't last the winter. We didn't have that harsh of a winter, so I may have to get another one of those and try again. But we're going to go ahead and do the scratch test on this one and see if there's any green left in that stem. It's looking pretty brown. It looks like it's not quite as dead as the other one, but it's not as green as I would like. So we're going to go down a little bit further. So it does look like there's a little bit of green in here. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this in the ground for a little bit longer, and maybe we'll see some growth come up from the base of this one. So we're going to go ahead and leave this one for now. I may cut this down a little bit because what's up here is probably pretty dead. But this down here is looking promising, so we'll see what happens. Thanks for watching my first fig update of the season. I'm hoping to do a few more of these this season and throw in a few tasting videos too of varieties that I haven't tried yet. We'll talk to you again soon. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. You can also find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.